Hey everyone, this is BRAINWAVEZ, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make basses like Borne. This whole project file, as usual, is available on my Patreon along with many others, so feel free to check the link in the description if you want to get it, and let's get started. The BPM for this project is 140. The drums is just a kick, 2 snares layered. They both have a little bit of reverb. I put this snare on reverse and I drop it in another channel, and it's just creating like a little pre-snare. Then I have a hi-hat, more like a ride, a top loop, a break loop, this break loop is set on warping mode, beats preserve 1/16 with this forward arrow and around 33%. So it's basically just making the transient a little bit tighter. If I put this on complex, it sounds way more loose, but I wanted like a little bit tighter transient in there. All the drums solo would sound like this. Then on my synths, I have one sub bass for the whole thing. The sub bass is just a sine wave with this harmonic in here. I'm creating a modulation of the chorus pitch, and I'm using the LFO1 with this curve for that modulation. So the amount of the chorus pitch modulation in here is 19. The LFO1 is set to envelope mode, 1/16 notes. Then the envelope one for the sound looks like this. Just a little bit of release in here. And it has a little bit of soft clipping distortion. Without the distortion and without the chorus pitch, sounds like that. Very simple sub bass, but I wanted to have that movement, so that's where the pitch chorus modulation comes handy. Next, the first bass is this one. You will notice that all of these are pretty much a variation of the sub bass that I just showed you. So in this instance, for example, I still have the same chorus pitch modulation, same amount, envelopes looking exactly the same as well, same as with the wavetable, the soft clipping distortion. So the only thing that I did in here was to add some saturation, which actually I'm automating the dry wet of the saturation. So in the first half of the drop is around 43%. The second half is around 11%. So yeah, medium curve, saturation, this parameter is over here, and then I'm just cutting the low end. So that's for that first bass. Pretty simple, but pretty cool sound if you ask me. Then the second bass is this one. So let me just go through that one. In this one you can see that I have a very similar wavetable, but notice that is like every other harmonic. so that gives it like a very specific sound. I still have the same pitch, chorus pitch modulation, envelopes looking the same, but then I enabled a second oscillator with a sine wave, and this one has 2 octaves up and 4 semitones up. Then I enabled a filter, which is only affecting oscillator A, and the envelope 1 is modulating the cutoff by 39. After that, same distortioning here. That's without it. Then with it, soft clipping, just like a very soft saturation. Then outside of the patch, I have a little effect rack, and notice that the chain for this effect rack is minus 9 dBs, meaning that it's not like on full volume. If it was on full volume, it would sound like this. But I didn't want it to be so distorted, so I set it to minus 9. If you don't know how I pull up this little menu, what I did was group all of this. I'm just gonna do it again, and then in here you get like the chain menu, and in here you can pull down the volume, or set it left and right, solo it, whatever. So yeah, that being said, inside of it there is overdrive, amp, compression, and saturation. Let me just mute it and go one by one. That's without it. Then overdrive, just boosting a little bit around 1000 hertz. Amp, it's just adding some harmonics and some texture to it. This is a preset from Ableton called A Bit Warmer, and then some glue compression, soft clipping at the end. And lastly, outside of the rack, I'm putting an EQ8. I'm just cutting the sub bass, and then I'm decreasing around 200 because it was a little bit too resonant in that area, as you can definitely tell. Then third bass is that one. Same effect chain as you can see in here, so I'm not gonna cover that. Same EQ. So what it changed was only the patch in Serum. I'm using the acid wavetable disc in this instance, which is on the analog menu. And I'm modulating the wavetable position with the first LFO, which is still going to the chorus pitch. In this preset is at 11 in the amount instead of 19. So yeah, little note in there. The envelope is looking pretty much the same. I just have like a shorter release. Still, I have the filter going on. Second oscillator is still the same, 2 octaves up, 4 semitones up, but I'm introducing a new LFO in here. This one is in envelope mode, 1/8 notes, and is modulating the level of the second oscillator by 43. So without that, sounds like that, but I wanted a little bit more movement. Also without the wavetable position modulation, and without this. It's a cool sound, but I just wanted a little bit more movement. Bass number 4 sounds like this. This one has a little bit more going on to it. I'm just gonna mute the new effects that I added. And for the preset, you can see that now I'm once again back to the sine wave with the harmonics that I draw. I'm back to the pitch chorus modulation in 19%. Now the second oscillator is a sine wave, but I added these harmonics in there. And I have a couple extra like modulations with this filter. So let me just mute all of it. So this is the patch with the first wavetable only and the level modulation with this second LFO. So far sounds like this. Check out this second LFO is set on trigger mode, half a bar in the rate. Then I enable the second oscillator, LFO 2 going into the level as well, 70% in this case. The chorus pitch modulation is going to LFO 1, as you might remember. Then in the filter, I have the MG low 12. I'm modulating the cutoff going all the way up and down, and the drive with that amount of 29, resonance around 37, and it's affecting both oscillator A and oscillator B. I enabled the soft clip and distortion that we've been using all around. Hyper dimension, this D dimension part is around 28, size around 15. Compressor, multiband, gain around 11. And I'm doing a modulation of the mix down, 33% in there. So that's for the patch, and then I enable all the effects that we just broke down in the other patch. Then this auto filter, I just draw the automation manually, so it looks like this. And you can see that the envelope is all the way up, resonance around 36%. And I put a volume automation in there, so the volume automation looks like this. It's just helping with the motion. And finally, EQ just cut in the sub. So that's for that bass. Then I have a final one, which is this one. For this one, I'm gonna mute the post-processing in here, and you will notice a lot of familiar stuff. Once again, sine wave with the harmonics, but check this out. Now I'm using like different harmonics, and it's not like I know what I'm doing. I'm just drawing stuff and see like how it sounds basically. So yeah, I'm not overthinking it too much. In this one, I just had like a little different envelope, so you can see that the sustain now is around minus 2.6 dBs. Release is a little bit higher. And I enabled a noise generator, which the level is being modulated by the envelope that we just covered. Second oscillator, just a sine wave with 2 octaves and 4 semitones up. But yeah, a couple interesting things happening. So let me mute all of it. Pitch modulation now is bypassed, so meaning I'm not using it. This is how just the basic shape sounds by itself. Then I enable the second oscillator and check out that the panning and the level of it is being modulated by the second LFO, which is on trigger mode and is on free rate, so it's not attached to the project with the BPM is not synced. So that's how that sounds. Noise generator being modulated by this envelope. Then filter. The drive, I'm modulating it with the LFO 2 and the cutoff with the envelope 1. So yeah, not much going on, but if we enable distortion, there you go. Now we're getting somewhere. Then hyperdimension, those values over here, reverb, mix being modulated by the LFO2, decay around 3%, size around 22, compression, notice that is not a multiband mode, gain around 3 dBs, mix around 30. That's for the patch, and then I enable saturation, erosion, and EQ, just cutting the sub and adding a little bit of a boost around 3000 Hertz. So we covered all the main basses, then I just have a couple bass fills. Both of them are just samples of mine. So that's one, it just has a little bit of OTT and cutting the sub bass, and this one, just a layer. Then last but not least, I have a vocal repeating throughout the drop. I could cut some low end out of this. Yeah, the vocal has like a very like percussion-y sound, which I kind of felt like definitely helped with the vibe. It has a little bit of reverb. It just helps with the rhythm a lot. I've noticed that this type of track, when you add like a vocal repeating throughout the drop, it just helps tons with the flow. So if I disable the vocal, and with the vocal, yeah, it just helps a lot. So that's pretty much it. I hope you guys found this helpful. Let me know in the comments what other artists or styles you would like me to cover. As usual, this whole project file is available on my Patreon, and also I'm doing one-on-one coaching. So if you want to jump on a Zoom call with me, feel free to check the link in the description for that. Please leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, and I hope I see you around.